Hey, listen, I don't want to make it weird or anything like that. It's just that, I just have a question. You're not, real or something, right? I mean, I don't want to make it weird. It's just like I've sat on you for so long that, the possibility, maybe, of. Hey, what's up? Yeah, I just kissed the chair for the intro. I don't know how I feel yet about that. I mean, digital footprint and all that stuff. But anyway, hi guys, welcome back to the show. Today, I want to give you guys a review of SUZUME, the new Makoto Shinkai film that's out currently. This is going to be a spoiler-full episode, okay? So if you've not seen the movie yet, I don't want to spoil it for you. Go check it out before you watch this. If you do continue to watch this, having that warning, that's on you. And I can't do anything about that. So this is the latest film by Makoto Shinkai. You might famously know him from his previous films such as Your Name and Weathering with You, 5 centimeters per second, all that stuff. This is not his first rodeo. Some would say he might be the new Miyazaki, who knows? But for me, he has had a solid 3-film run, which I jumped on the bandwagon after Your Name, so I have not watched his earlier works. But the last 3 that have come out, they've all been bangers. That's right, all 3 of them things. 3 of them things? This film follows a titular character, SUZUME, a 17-year-old high schooler who lives in Japan. Much like Shinkai's films, they all take place in Japan, somewhere in Japan, which is one of the cool things about him, I would say. Shows off the beauty of Japan, every aspect of it. It is a story about her discovering these things called closers, and what this is are people who exist in Japan solely to close doors that lead to the afterlife that houses a giant worm who comes out and tries to cause natural disasters in the form of earthquakes. I know. It's magical. That's mostly, if you've not seen any of his films, what they kind of are. They all kind of dabble in the world of disbelief, things that can't be explained, all that fun stuff. And along the way, there are some troubles and tribulations that unfold here. I don't want to give you guys a full synopsis of the film because you can go see it yourself if you haven't seen it. And if you have seen it, you already know what happens, so I don't need to give you a full rundown. I just mainly want to talk about the film itself and how I felt about it. So to me, I feel like this might be Shinkai's funniest film, at least of the last couple that I've seen. The other ones do have some aspects of comedy in them, but I feel like this one is the funniest to me. I found myself laughing the most that I have laughed at any of his movies. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's just a guy who was a chair, and it's funnier than what it should be. The sound effects, they just were doing it for me. They were hilarious. But yeah, I do feel like he captures a lot of his, I guess, his comedic writing and his flow really came together in this one and made it more of an enjoyable experience for like a casual watcher who wasn't going to go and find like a sad love story. His past couple have been, not super sad, but they have had aspects of like sadness in them, so it was nice to see like kind of a change of pace for him. Also, I feel like this might be his most delicious film that we've seen so far. You probably have seen clips of Weathering with You where the main character is making like an egg, I think it was maybe ramen or some sort of breakfast, whatever, but you've seen it like on all those videos where it shows like, oh, food and anime looks so much better. He captures a lot of those scenes here, more than he has in the past, I believe. I think he made it more of a point. Maybe he did see those videos and he was like, oh, you guys like seeing food come to life? Okay, well, let me show you. And he doubles down on that, and he has a lot of interesting dishes in here that you see throughout the journey of SUZUME, and I feel like I want to try to make some of these, but that probably won't go very well. But I do think that, yes, this might be his most delicious looking film as well, so again, interesting to see him lean more into that aspect of his filmmaking, so like a comedy and a food vlog, basically, because this was a big road trip film, essentially. The other one, Weathering with You, had a small road trip when the main character travels to like Main Island, Tokyo, I guess. But this one is more of like here's a destination, go here, here's a destination, go here. And it was cool, like I mentioned earlier, the way he captures Japan. I've never been, but like seeing him capture these different parts of it is very interesting because it makes you want to like explore more than just Tokyo. Because every time you see something from Japan, it's always just Tokyo. You don't know the outskirts of like Tokyo or different cities within Japan. So it was nice to see different sides of it, and I do like the fact that he makes it a point to like show love to Japan as a whole, like as a love letter to Japan, I guess. And I guess going within that, the food and the traveling aspect of it, the animation in this film was top notch as always, as with most of his films. I don't know if it's quite as I don't know, it's tough. I really did like the animation in Weathering with You, and Your Name just had some crazy shots in there, and I feel like this one is like the nice middle ground between those two animation styles, because I feel like Your Name was so much of him like making, like announcing himself, like, oh, here I am as the next big creator or big filmmaker out of Japan, and here are some like crazy scenes that you can take and like, you know, post on your Tumblr. It's not a thing anymore, but you could post like these gifs of like my scenes that I've created for you. And then Weathering with You, he like pushed it to the limit, and he shows you what he can really do when he has a full-fledged like bigger budget. And SUZUME fits kind of like in the middle of these animation styles. It's not like pushed to the limits like Weathering with You, and it's not just like bare minimum-ish as Your Name. It fits right there. It has some beautiful aspects in the film, I won't doubt you that, but there are some where I'm just kind of like, huh, interesting. He could have went a little bit further with that. There were a lot of more like action scenes in this. Like there was some fight scenes that you get to see and experience, and it was cool to see him do more of that. Because, you know, typically when you think of anime, you think of like fight scenes or whatever, and his past two haven't had really any big like that fight scenes. They've been like small little action pieces here and there, like, you know, chase scenes or whatever, and like standoffs like that. But this was cool to see him do a little bit of action scenes. We see him, you know, the big cat at the end fight the big worm, and then we see a little bit of like when he's trying to close the door as a human Soda, not as the chair. He's running around, and it's like, oh, I could see what he could do if he were to get some sort of like action movie. Like if he were just to only animate that and not be the one who wrote that story, we could see kind of like what it would look like through these shots. And speaking of chairs, Sota and SUZUME and Serizawa and Takimi and Chika and the other ones, all the characters that come together to make this film what it is. I did enjoy a lot of them. Like as mentioned earlier, it is kind of like a road trip film, and when you watch road trip films, you kind of want the people that you encounter to be interesting, not be boring or not be like super weird where you're like, why is this person in the story? No, every character that she meets along her way or that she already had in her life that we see like expanded upon, I enjoyed all of them. They've all had their own like something to bring to the table. You know, Chika was like the best friend, sister type that she never had, and then Takimi might have been like the mom that she could have had, you know, like, well, you know, stay here, watch your brother and sister while I go out and like, you know, work or whatever. And then we get to see Serizawa. He could be like the cool uncle. Somehow you see like her aunt and Serizawa get along, and you can kind of see like some sort of like relationship forming there. So it was cool to see her aunt kind of interact with like an older person who wasn't just that guy that she worked with that was like into her. It was cool to see like what it would be like maybe if she had just like not had to deal with SUZUME, you know, deal with, saying that like loosely, like she was a problem. But yeah, you can see kind of like how her aunt interacts with other adults who aren't just SUZUME, because you're so used to seeing her be like a motherly figure. So that was really cool to see. And yeah, all the characters. Oh, and so like I said, he was cool as a main character. I liked him better as a chair because I feel like the chair gave him more character. And I just feel like when he's a human, he kind of reminded me of Hal from Howl's Moving Castle. So it's like he's cool. He's the main guy for a reason, but like, yeah, whatever. We're here for the other people. Him as a chair though, superior. Loved him as a chair. The cats, they played their part well. They were evil, and you wanted to hurt them every time they were on screen. Mainly the main one, the white one, White Daijin, yeah. But you know, when you learn that he was, you know, good, then you're like, oh, okay. But throughout the film, he plays a good like beginning antagonist. This was also very Shinkai-esque, where the first half of the story is one story, and the second half is a completely different story. It's a different tone. For some reason, I don't know if it's like he does it on purpose. It feels like he does at this point, but yeah, it's always like splits, and you feel like, oh, is this where the movie's gonna end? And then there's like another hour more worth of story to do. So I did like the fact that he kept that, the tones being different in the first half and second half, keeps you on your toes, keeps you guessing, and you're always like wondering, like, is it gonna end here? No, and then it just keeps going, and he explains more to you, and it's a nice way to pace things out. It's kind of like Tarantino-esque, I guess, where you like show you the end at the beginning, and then he shows you like the middle at the beginning, and then it all mixes up and it all connects at the end. Especially with this one, especially because you know, towards the end when it does kind of connect, and it becomes the fact that you know, SUZUME, the person that she saw in her dreams in the beginning, was actually future her, and it was looking out for past her. And the message behind that is very, very nice and very loving. So speaking of messages, let's talk about the story itself, the overall plot of the film. How do I think it fares compared to his other films? I don't think it was as strong as Your Name's story, but I don't think it was as weak as Weathering with You's story. It's kind of in the middle for me. Again, this is a very middle film for you, and that kind of lets you know like what my rankings are. I would say Your Name, and then SUZUME, and then Weathering with You as far as like the films, what I would rank them. But yeah, I don't think it wasn't super strong of a story. It was interesting. It just, like I said, it's a road trip story. But I mean, there are layers to it, with like how I mentioned her past self and forgiveness, and like her aunt and their relationship, and like, what it's like to become a guardian at such a young age and to lose somebody at such a young age. Like all that stuff, I get it. It's all nice and fine and dandy. But as far as like the secondary story and like, the love story aspect of it, it gets a little weird because it's like you find out that, she's only like 16, 17 maybe, and then Sota, who she's in love with, is already in college, almost graduating. He's like probably like at least 23. So the age thing becomes a weird thing at one point, which I think was kind of the same thing in the last one too, because in Weathering With You, he was supposedly younger than her, and then you find out that he was actually older than her the whole time. It's still kind of like, oh, that's weird. So yeah, the love story, I think, the motivation behind it, I guess, the whole thing with her, like, doing it because she loves him, and like towards the end when she has to go find him, she's on a bigger mission to go find him because of love and all that stuff. I didn't really buy it too much. Like, I get it. Maybe it was a different kind of love, but it seemed like it was a romantic type love, and I didn't really feel that connection with them. I could see how they had love for each other because they just met and they had this road trip together, and maybe because she's young, she feels like she's in love with him. But anyway, that's not the point. I think that aspect of the story was weaker compared to the other two. But yeah, the whole her losing her mom and then her aunt becoming her mother type thing, that was a good story. I like that whole story a lot. But yeah, I just think overall together, when you combine them, it wasn't as good as Your Name, and it's better than Weathering With You. But with that all being said, I did still really like this movie. I do think it's worth your time if you've not seen it and you already watched like this whole review. I don't know why you would do that. I spoiled the whole thing for you. But if you are one of those people who do just like to know what you're getting into, I suggest going to see it. It's a very good film, despite it being like an anime film, because I know some people get kind of put off by that. It is a very good film. It is going to be a front runner, I think, for best animated movie coming next year, award seasons, because I believe Weathering With You was nominated for an Oscar as well. So this could fit in the category perfectly fine. It holds its own. It's a very beautiful story, very beautifully shot film. You're gonna enjoy it. Funny, like I mentioned earlier, it's good for the family. You could bring them all along, and so it's all around. It's a good film. I enjoyed it. Like I mentioned, I did not like it as much as Your Name, but I think Your Name is because it was like the first one of his films that I've seen. I might hold it in a higher regard. So that's 1 for me. 2 would be Suzume, and then 3 is Weathering With You. But I feel like they all are great movies. They're all A-tier films, S-tier almost. Maybe that'd be interesting. Maybe I should rank them like animated movies. Anyway, yeah. Out of 5 stars, let's go like Letterboxd rating. What did I give it on my Letterboxd? I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. So yeah, take that what you will. Despite what I've said about it, maybe it still was a fantastic little experience. I only saw it once, so these are all my like first time viewing thoughts. Maybe they'll change, with time. Maybe they'll grow more with time. Who knows? But for now, Suzume definitely was a fun watch. I suggest going to see it, and I also suggest that you subscribe down below and follow down below and all that stuff. You can find that below. Also, you can comment and let me know what you thought of the film, if you've seen it. If not, and you just watched my review only, what did you think of my review? Did you think that I did a really good job? Maybe did you think I did terrible? Who knows? All that stuff, all is down below. And until next time, I'm gonna take this with me.